Good evening. This is Julian, the mayor. We thank you very much for listening. And we begin with a bittersweet alert, news item. A great American sports figure, and a great person, really, passed on today at a wonderful age of 93, 94. And that was arguably one of the greatest baseball players ever. Certainly can be spoken about in that category. I would say one would say he might qualify as the best all-round baseball player ever. Meaning, when you combine power, hitting, bunting, and then defensive abilities. The ability to catch the ball, the ability to throw the ball, the amazing territory he could cover in center field, and then his base running abilities. I think you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid. I should tell you, a friend of mine and a former client, law client, friend, and a person who endorsed me for mayor in 1993. A very fine man. Early in his career, he was given the nickname Say Hey Kid because he would always say, hey, hey. And he came up, very interestingly, 1951 was a watershed World Series. It was between the two New York teams, in this case, the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. It had been a couple of years of the New York Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers, but the teams were so competitive in that in the span of 5 or 6 years, the Yankees were in the World Series and 6 times, 7 times in an 8-year span. The Giants a couple of times, and the Dodgers 4 times. So, the World Series was in New York. So 1951, after a couple of Yankee-Dodger World Series, it was a Yankee-Giant World Series, and it was the first World Series for Willie Mays, the first World Series for Mickey Mantle, and the last World Series for Joe DiMaggio. Kind of like the changing of the guard. The real World Series history was made, however, with the catch, known in baseball circles as the catch. It is the one catch that stands out above all others. It was in the first game of the 1954 World Series on September 29, 1954, in a place called the Polo Grounds, which was the home of the New York baseball Giants, and at that time, the football Giants as well. And the Giants were playing the much favored Cleveland Indians, who came into it with one of the best one-loss records of any team in baseball history, with a pitching staff that was unbeatable. And the Giants were a good team. They had been in the 52 World Series. They lost to the Yankees. They had 51 World Series, excuse me. And they had won that great game on, you might call it the home run heard round the world, of Bobby Thompson against Ralph Branca. But here they were back again and underdogs. And in the first game, we get to the 8th inning. The score is tied 2-2. The Indians have 2 men on base. Harry Doby, who was the first African-American to play for the Cleveland Indians, by the way. You might want to know. Willie was not the first African-American to play for the Giants. I believe it was Monty Irvin. Maybe the second. And Larry Doby was on first. Al Rosen, their all-star third baseman, and Doby was pretty close to an all-star first baseman, singled. And All of a sudden, a guy named Vic Wertz comes to the plate, who was their power hitter. Vic Wertz was their home run hitter, had a large number of home runs that year. And of course, Willie was in center field, one of the 2 or 3 most treacherous in all of baseball. It would be hard to judge which was more difficult, that or Yankee Stadium. This was deeper but more symmetrical. Yankee Stadium was actually it was deeper in left center. Yankee Stadium was. Yankee Stadium was completely asymmetrical. And I'll tell you a little about that later, because Willie was never like that. All of a sudden, Wertz hits one over Willie Mays' head in what is a sure triple. And considered to be made better catches. But of course, this is in the World Series. It's the first game, became the turning point game. The Giants went under in a sweep. And I think this catch has been repeated more than any single catch made by a baseball player in the history of that venerable sport. So let's listen to the call by, I think also probably broadcast Hall of Famer Jack Brickhouse, along with the color, at least the color man for this particular part of the broadcast, Russ Hodges, who was the regular broadcaster for the New York Giants, who had just pretty much gone on television, regularly, maybe for about 2-3 years at this point. So let's listen to the play, and then I'll fill out the rest of it for you.
Drawn to his feet was a catch which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people. And Willie Mays gave this crowd of 52,751 an unforgettable sight. Wertz pounds the next pitch over Willie Mays' head, but there goes Willie. And he makes a miraculous catch as he stops a step short of the wall.
When I got to talk to him about that, which would have been in 1990 or so, which is when I represented him, he said he always felt bad they paid more attention to the catch than the throw. The throw held the men on base, 2 men on base, who could have tagged up and come, at least probably one of them could come home, make it 2-1. And they actually never thought he'd catch the ball. So the lead run, Adobe, started off as if it were going to be a triple, and got himself caught somewhere around third base as he started to realize, hey, kid may catch this damn thing. And then he had to rush back, so he actually, I think, was able to tag up and make it to third, but he certainly couldn't make it home. So, and then, of course, the Giant pitchers shut him down and went into extra innings, and ultimately the game ended 4-2 Giants. And Willie ending his career with the New York Mets, where I had the great privilege of watching him play. Even an old baseball player, he was still a very, very credible defender, and he still could hit. I mean, he wasn't the 350 hitter that he was as a young man, and he couldn't probably make a catch like that. But there are a lot of people playing baseball when Willie was in his 40s, at over 20, who couldn't play like Willie Mays. I got to represent him in a case in which he was alleged to have committed assault. And the case was settled and worked out nicely. It was tried for a bit in Atlantic City. And part of my arrangement with him was that he would allow me to ask him lots of questions about baseball when we finished, when the periods of time when we were driving back and forth to Atlantic City and had some time and we were finished with, preparing the case. And he was enormously accommodating and he let me ask all the questions I wanted to ask as a obsessive baseball fan of that era. But there had been a big thing in New York where you had to pick the best baseball player at each position. And center field was a wicked one to pick in New York because, of course, you had, in his era, his competitors in New York were Mickey Mantle and Duke Snider, Hall of Famers. And each hitters, I would say hitters of his caliber, certainly offensive players, Mantle probably had more power. Snider, maybe a little more. He was a better all-around hitter than either of them, although Mantle was close. Remember, Mantle won the Triple Crown and played with injuries, but, you got to evaluate his career with injuries. I would say that Mantle came closer to matching his multi-skilled abilities, meaning more power, in his early career, as good or better a hitter for average. Later on in his career, not. But neither Duke nor Mickey could play the outfield as flawlessly as he did. The only other person in the history of New York that could was Joe DiMaggio. And when I had to pick, even though I love Joe DiMaggio, and I hadn't become really close friends with him yet, with Joe. I eventually did. I made a pick, and I picked him as the best center fielder over Joe DiMaggio. Here, me, a Yankee fan, picking him. And when I told him that, he told me that he would have picked Joe DiMaggio. And I almost lost it. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you, I grew up watching Joe DiMaggio on the Oakland Seals. And you know where they always say about him that he always broke the right way for a pitch? He said, I'm sure he didn't, but I watched him many, many times, even in the minor leagues. I never saw him break the wrong way. Go left when it was going to go right when it was going to make the wrong step. He said, I didn't do that much either. I had a good instinct for going to the ball. No kidding. But I could make up for it with my speed. And then he said, he also had great speed. You just didn't realize it because what he didn't have in acceleration like I had, he had in the legs that were gigantically long. He said he was like a gazelle. He said both he and Ted Williams, if you look at them when they run on the bases, look a lot alike. So it was, I realized that Willie was a real student of the game. And I remember once while the trial was going on, there was a big fight in baseball. Somebody got hit with the ball. They didn't agree they should be hit. It was a makeup hit for somebody else getting hit and all that other stuff. And Willie said, how stupid are they? This hitting with the ball stuff. He said, I knew part of the game was getting hit with the ball. I knew if I embarrassed a pitcher with some big home run, or sometimes one of my teammates did, and they wanted to get even with the best player, I was going to get hit. And I accepted it as long as it was a gentleman's hit. They hit me in the middle of the body. So the only time I would get angry is if they were going to try to end my ability to feed my family by going for my head. And he said, and there's only one guy I really hate, and that's Bob Gibson. I said, you don't really hate him, Willie. And he looked at me like, oh boy, I better shut up. He said he would go right for your head. And I said, Willie, I think he was trying to create that impression. He said, no, he wasn't. I was a catcher. So I used to defend pitchers. And sometimes it would get me in trouble when I would talk to Willie Mays or some of the hitters. I would try to explain why sometimes pitchers have to throw brushback. And Willie actually admitted that. I said, Willie, he used to take over the whole, he would almost stand on the damn plate. He said, yeah, if they let me. What a man. What a guy. You can miss him. The last years have been tough, but this was an unbelievable personality. I mean, one of the true great New York personalities, although most of his career was in San Francisco. I still think of him as a New York Giant, don't you? And of course, that catch just never was repeated by anyone ever, anything like that. And he would do that all the time. I think Russ Hodges says that during the broadcast. He said, "Oh, he did this, a number of times during the season." Well, getting back to real life, huh? We'll take a short break, and when we get back, we'll talk about the unbelievable crime wave that's going on with both minor crimes, middle-level crimes, and rape and murder by the people Joe Biden brought into the United States, who wouldn't be here but for our idiocy in electing him. Another reason why he's the worst president ever in the history of this country. He's basically destroyed our sovereignty and our safety and security, particularly even for our women and children. What a disaster. We'll be back very shortly.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
You were looking at morning coffee. This is bold coffee. This is bold coffee. I know it's a little late for it, but, you want me to be sharp for this broadcast, don't you? This is really fabulous coffee. It is the best beans, the Arabica beans, and the best of those. You saw some of the white ones that we used there. Very fabulous. We just made this about a half hour ago, and Steve made it, and you did a great job. Really, he really. You got to know how many beans to put in. You got to get it just right. But you can. Then what happens if you make a mistake? If you have good coffee like this, what happens is you get it a little bolder, you get it a little lighter, but it still has a fabulous taste. I mean, I haven't used milk or sugar substitutes for coffee since I've been grinding my own coffee, even before mine. Because the coffee is so much better when you do it yourself and you get to pick the beans. And if you eliminate the Robusto beans, you can't believe how smooth and how much nicer the coffee is. Also healthier. I'll have Dr. Maria talk to you about that tomorrow night. She helped me pick this out and come up with this blend. One is this one here. This is bold. You can have this in the morning if that's what you like, bold coffee in the morning. Then the morning coffee, which is, milder, but still a little punch to get you awake. And then we have decaffeinated, and we have decaffeinated without any artificial anything in it, which most decaffeinated has, and it's like drinking chemicals. And then we also are coming out pretty soon now with for the summer with coffee that can specifically be used for iced coffee. So we got everything. We got everything, and we're going to keep it away from all those criminals that are running around that Biden let in. Just think of the universe here. I'm going to give you Trump's last year. I'm going to give you Trump's last year as an example of what the range of other presidents was 300,000 at a low to 1 million at a high, and 1 million was like once or twice. I think Trump's highest was 800,000, and then he brought it down to 4. Biden last year, so he was at 4 when he turned it over to Numbskull. Numbskull moved it right up immediately to a record. He went over 1 million something and set a record for all presidents ever. Then he exceeded the record for all presidents ever. And then he went to 3.5 million last year. So let's add it all up. We're talking about he brought a state of criminals in. Now, why do I say criminals? Because he's lying to you, and so are people like Mayor Adams. And when they say, oh, give us you're tired, you're poor, you're heavy laden. Yeah, you're tired, you're poor, you're heavy laden from your jails, from your insane asylums, from the people who don't want to work, for the people who will be determined by the cartels as to priorities in coming in here. Sure, there'll be some decent people with them, but they're an afterthought. This is now a very, very well-controlled, organized operation involving everything but the United States. Our border is not controlled by us. We're not a sovereign nation any longer. Among other things that he gave away in his effort to make us look like the Soviet Union, is our sovereignty. You don't have to know anything about America or care about America. You can hate America the way a lot of the Democrats do and get in here. You can't build a country that way. That's the way you destroy a country. But that's, of course, what he wants to do. Isn't his biggest fundraiser against American nationalism George Soros? You think this is an accident that these people are coming in? People say, oh, why does he do this? He does it because he wants to destroy America as a nation. So we become part of the Obama one world, the Soros one world, the Klaus Schwab one world. Now, does Biden know that? In his best day, he couldn't figure it out. If I tell you that a lot of this is sketched out in Karl Marx and Frederick Engels and latter-day Marxist Gramsci and others, it would mean nothing to him. The guy cheated his way through law school. I think he was left back in grammar. I mean, he's a dope. He's a big dope who knows how to use other people. They go collect the money for him. As his son says, and you don't get to see or hear, but I show it to you every other night, in a text, in black and white, half his salary went to his father for 30 years. Now, why would that be? What stupid reason will the Democrats come up for that one? The same stupid things they say when he looks like Mr. Zombie walking around being directed by his puppet master, Obama. So we now have 2 major killings. We have a lot more than that. What about Laken Riley? They're going to pass that off as some guy in Athens, Georgia, that killed her. That wouldn't have been picked up. And then Biden's contribution to it was he mispronounced her name at the State of the Union because he hadn't mentioned it for 8 days, and he was challenged by Marjorie Taylor Greene to do it. He had the damn thing written out there. It said Laken Riley, and he called her Lincoln. That's really good. That's like when the people that he got killed in Afghanistan came back and their families were here, and he went like this. Oh, I wonder when this will be over so I can go have my ice cream, or I can watch my dogs eat up the Secret Service. I'm not going to feed him. I think I'll feed him 1 agent tonight and maybe 2 tomorrow night. This is a very sick man in the White House. And when people see it, they wonder, are we a sick country? Only a sick country would select a man like this. We're a brainwashed country. That's what we are. They worked us over, and they've got our media completely. I'm the exception, not the only one, but I'm in a small group. And you know what they want to do to me? They want to destroy me. They want to bankrupt me. They want to take away everything I have, and they want to put me in jail for the rest of my life. What else would you like to do to me? Because I don't agree with you. In fact, not only do I agree with you, I believe you're destroying my country, and I hate you for it. And I have to save it for my children and grandchildren. So let's take first the killing, the attack on the 13-year-olds in Casino Park, New York, last week. These two 13-year-olds were coming home from school, and they were going through what used to be, in my day, a really, really delightful park, Casino Park. It had a carousel. It had bad times, during the city's period of crime. But it was really a great place. I used to go there sometimes, just, I guess you'd call it politicking and just nosing around and talking to people. There's a golf course nearby. And they were coming home from school, two 13-year-olds. And they were stopped by a man that doesn't belong here, and a man who is only here because of two things. I mean, mainly because of Biden, opening the border to everyone and telling them back in 2020 to rush to the border and get ready to come in when he opens the gates, which he did. He stops no one. And all of his hullabaloo about a new program, we'll show you, is all garbage and lying. So this man is here only because of Joe Biden. And he's in New York particularly because Adams featured New York as a super uber duber sanctuary city. Even since the time of his complaining, he's done counterproductive things like give credit cards to them. Isn't that absurd? You're just going to make your city much worse. So the two of them have a responsibility more on Biden than on Adams. So let me tell you his name. He was identified later. His name is Christian Giovanni Ingerlandi, and he comes from Ecuador. He's an illegal from Ecuador. He approached the two 13-year-olds with a machete. He forced them into the brush and into an area that was secluded or somewhat secluded, tied up their hands, beat the boy, and raped the girl. Thank you, Joe. And with an assist to Adams, huh? Because it wouldn't be here. Joe, if you hadn't stolen the election, this guy wouldn't be here. Under Trump's 400,000 and under Trump's particular rules for certain countries, and this one would fit. This is what you kind of accused him of xenophobia about. That was really saving people from being raped, Joe. So there were pictures. There were sketches done of him, and tips put out, and that he had a distinctive boar tattoo on his chest. And the June 13 attack, when they were held at knife point, led to the police doing a good job of putting out lots of information about him, and ultimately a $10,000 reward that I think was increased to 25,000. Now, it turns out that the guy who did it, Inga Landy, entered the U.S. with a 3-year-old son. Maybe his, maybe not. And they bring the children in to get sympathy of the border people, who better stop being affected by hormones like that quickly, because when Trump becomes president, those hormones are not going to work. Just because you have a kid doesn't mean you're not a rapist. In fact, it might be a signal that you are, or you might be involved in child trafficking, where we are now the leader of the world. So stop all this dreamer garbage, huh? You don't get brought in here illegally and start dreaming. You want to dream, you come in legally. If not, go dream someplace else. So he was taken into custody, but that never does any good, because they don't check anything. They don't do any background check or anything like that. They hardly ask any questions anymore. It's considered offensive to ask questions. They were asking the Chinese too many questions. The Chinese complained, and Biden got them down to 4. Because that one, Chinese paid specially for, I'm sure. An immigration judge finally ordered him to leave. But he didn't, because they didn't pick him up and throw him out. They told him to leave. Did they really expect he was going to get on a bus and leave? Or did they know he was going to do like hundreds of thousands of others do? They just grab a bus and we pay for it, and they end up in the place that's asking to come the most, Adams, who tells them we're better than any place else, or used to. Since he's been in New York, he doesn't have a criminal record, although there seems to possibly be one in Texas. I don't know. But in New York, he's got what we call minor record. He's got a fare evasion back in 2023, about a little less than a year after he came to New York. Now, so why is that important? That's important because when I was mayor, and it's been changed by the criminal-loving Democrats, you got fingerprinted and photographed for fare evasion. You didn't necessarily go to prison, but we made sure you were logged in. Turned out that about half those people we caught for that were felons, violent felons. So Bratton and I got to put them in jail. It also turned out, I think this happened after Bratton, that we were getting fingerprints of people that later committed more serious crimes. We stopped a serial killing this way, and got a lot of attention at the time, and it sort of vindicated the broken windows theory, which for innocent, law-abiding human beings, particularly if they do things like believe in family and God and low taxes and small government, all the things that made America great. So he got away with the fare evasion, never got fingerprinted. Had he been fingerprinted, he might have been arrested even earlier, or he might have been arrested for other things that he did that we don't even know about. I really doubt that he was just like a really good boy for all this time, and the one thing he did is almost kill and rape and beat up a 13-year-old. Just doesn't kind of like happen one time. Usually you catch a criminal, figure you missed 10, 15, maybe 20, particularly in a city that's as stressed as we are and is at one of the lowest points it is in terms of the number of policemen it has. I bet you didn't know that. He then got a trespassing ticket. Not much details on that. We don't know where he trespassed, but again, that was an with his girlfriend over who the kids belong to. And then 911 call on Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the morning. Community members had been on the lookout for him for quite some time. In particular, Jeffrey Flores. Jeffrey Flores recognized him from the sketches that were put out and remembered that he saw him go into and he frequented a delicatessen. So he actually stayed out in front of that delicatessen, sometimes with his pals and sometimes by himself, waited for him. And when he got him, they pounced on him, held him. He stupidly tried to get away, and they beat the, as they say, they beat the shit out of him. Please don't cry. Not for a rapist. Please don't. Give some room. We want to give some room for normal human emotion. Let's give Mr. Penny some room for a murder that short break, and we
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live, and now one more horrendous example of the recklessness, the illegality, the anti-American ideology of the President of the United States, who is solely responsible for the presence of Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez in the United States, who would not be here if Donald Trump were the president or any rational person, probably I could say quite assuredly under no other president would he be here, including Barack Obama, whose numbers were high but rational compared to Biden. His director of Homeland Security thought that 1,000 a week was too much. He wants to settle on 2,500 a week, which is a couple of million a year of illegals coming in, which means we just disregard illegality. And we're constantly going to be adding a million or so, possibly criminals, because we can't check them out clearly. And it looks right now like it skewers very much in favor of criminals. There's a reason for that. You know, they're copying Castro, their hero. Castro did this in 1978 with the Mariel boat lift in 1979. And I know it because I had to clean it up under Ronald Reagan. He emptied his jails, and then he emptied his insane asylums, and then he emptied his prisons for the criminally mentally ill. These are people who killed each other on sight, and they came to America and did it in America, including in American jails. The Atlanta Penitentiary turned into a monster place. I visited it several times. I can describe it to you if you want. Well, the next one, as I said, is Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, a mere 23 years old, but already a lifetime criminal. He crossed illegally into the U.S. as if there were no border 4 times. 4 times. Before he ended up in Maryland and killed the mother of 5 children and raped her. That's the animal right there. There he is. He came into the United States. He was thrown out. He came into the United States again. He was thrown out. He came into the United States again, and he left on his own. And he came back undetected, which means he's in a different category than any numbers we're counting. He's in a category of not ever. The last time he came in, he was not arrested and then paroled out into the United States, as Biden does with all of them. He wasn't a got-away, one that we get to see, but we don't get to identify because we can't catch him. They're in the millions, by the way. He was in the you never get to see him category. And there are at least 50% of the number that are arrested are calculated as people you never get to see. In fact, the percentage, depending on the study you look at, is either from 50 to 150%. So in a year of 3.5 million, it'd be about 1.7 million at 50%, another 3.5 million. Oh, my goodness. Who knows what it could be? And it makes sense that the more that come in and the busier they make our people, the more the cartels are going to take advantage of bringing people in undetected, because those are the really high value people. That's how you get all the fentanyl in here to destroy our population, which China is doing with great precision. I mean, China is conducting not just a Cold War, but a killing war on us. They're killing about 100,000 of us a year without firing a shot or costing them any money. In fact, they're making billions on it. They've been in the drug trafficking with the Mexican cartels for 20 years. And the last couple of years under Biden, they've been getting their money back for how much they've paid Biden. They're making a fortune. And then Biden's met with Z twice and mentioned fentanyl, and it's gotten worse each time. I don't know what he really says to him, and I don't know. I wouldn't put anything past Biden. I don't know what kind of deals he makes with him. Do you? Would you ever have thought we'd have a president whose family got $31 million from Red China, and whose son tells you that half his income goes to his father? And we keep him there? And we don't tell the American people that? Well, this guy got in, and as soon as did we show them a picture of the young lady? That's her right there. That's Rachel Morin when she was younger, right? This is Rachel Morin right before she died. There she is right before she died. And here's the animal who killed her. This is what a Biden would call an animal. I mean, what Trump would call an animal, and Biden would call him a racist for saying that. Well, he might as well call him something because he let the guy in. The last time he came in, he crossed into the U.S. a fourth time, where he was undetected. We believe in March of 2023, and then on March 26, 2023, there's an attack in Los Angeles on a 9-year-old girl and her mom during a brutal home invasion. That attack now conclusively has been attributed to this Hernandez animal, because it was the DNA found there that ultimately matched with the DNA in Casino Park. And I think he's talked, but in any event, he's responsible for at least that home invasion. There's a group of other possible crimes in between. And then finally, on August 5th, 2023, Rachel Morin went for a run around the Ma and Pa Heritage Trail in Bel Air, Maryland. And it was about 6 p.m. when she did it. And her boyfriend, about 11:30 at night, reported to the police she hadn't returned. Well, she never returned. They found her body at 1 p.m. the next day in a culvert, beaten, brutalized, and raped by an animal invited here by Joe Biden and allowed to come here with complete disregard for the laws of the United States, where we had our hands on him at least 3 times. And not following the law, we let him go so one of our decent people could be killed and raped. And you're going to keep this guy in the White House? That's what one poll has him ahead. Who the hell are you? How many more people you want to get killed because of him? I mean, how many more soldiers, like in Afghanistan? I mean, not a single person in Ukraine would be dead because of the Russians today if he hadn't elected them last time. Afghanistan, those people wouldn't be dead either. Israel? I don't think so. We were making peace in Israel. Donald Trump handed over to this guy a secure border as we had in some time, and moving toward a more secure border. He handed over a world that was at peace. We got a world that's on the verge of, people say, a world war. You did it. I didn't vote for him. I risked everything to try to stop you. I continue to. For my country. For my granddaughter. I don't know how to explain to you how serious this is and how foolish so many Americans have been. And in some cases, how corrupt, which is disgusting. So this guy now is caught and he's charged with her murder. And they think there may be more. Now, remember Biden said, was it a week ago, June 5th, maybe? June 5, the order began, that well, you're going to stop. I'm going to stop him at the border. All the things he said he couldn't do 5 weeks ago, he was now going to do. Except what he wanted to do even 5 weeks ago it is right out of Orwell. It's like, the government's going to stop murdering you, but the people, but the subcontractors we hire from the government will murder you, but the government won't be murdering you. This is essentially, they turn around the truth. They turn around the meaning of words. So he's going to stop the illegal criminal aliens from coming in, except he's going to allow 2,500 a day. And he's going to allow booking your entry on CBP-1, which you don't know about, and he tells people very little about it, but if you do that, you can get in, basically announce that you want amnesty, and you're here for 5 years. And now he's going to add to that, giving amnesty to about 500,000 illegals. Just the way to stop illegal migration, by the way. And I mean, the way to encourage it. And just to show you that he's completely in bad faith and the most miserable liar to ever occupy that office, since he announced this on the 5th, the compliant, sycophant, traitorous press has not really made any point of the fact that average number coming in illegally now, remember, it's supposed to be 2,500. Actually, 1,500 for an entire week per day would cut it off. There was a margin between 1,500 and 2. We're averaging 3,200 a day with the crackdown. So the 2,500 doesn't mean anything. The 1,500 doesn't mean anything. 3,200 a day would take us to more than any other American president allowed in before this criminal took over the White House. He also, during this period of time, has decided to let in another 500,000, and he won't give us the statistics on how many he's allowing in under CBP-1, but that could be as many as 1 million more. So nothing's changed. A slight slowdown, but numbers that are catastrophic, particularly added on top of the 12 million already here. Trump's answer to it is stop them all from coming in. No 2,500, no 2, no 1. Let's go for 0. And, we're probably not going to get to 0, but if we go for 0, we're going to get real close. He sure as hell got a lot closer than Biden is going to legislate by executive order. He'll be able to stop him at the border. I can guarantee you. And if he doesn't, I'll go volunteer and do it. I mean, it's brain surgery. It'd be hard to expel him, but not with the numbers I see. Not with the 63+% of the American people supporting it. 53% of Hispanics, almost 50% of blacks. America wants them expelled. They want illegals thrown out of here. They no longer are into this. Let's legalize them, because they're screwing legitimate people. We want people who can contribute to our country. If people can't demonstrate the ability to get here legally, what the hell do we want them for? What are they going to contribute? We can't bring people in here because we want to solve world poverty. We've got to bring the whole world here in that case. So even then, we're picking the wrong people if we're picking the people who are coming in to solve poverty by breaking the law, because then we're going to get a disproportionate number of Giovanni pervert and Hernandez the animal. If we want to help poor people, let's figure out decent poor people to help. Let's not let them figure out who's going to come here and kill our children and rape our women and kill us. You want to set down criteria. You do not have a right to come to the United States. The Democrats believe that. The Marxists believe it because they want to make one world. They're probably the same, the Democrat and the Marxists. Sensible people that understand law and understand civilization realize that a country has a sovereignty and it has a right to say yes or no as to whether or not you come in. And you build a great country by bringing the most productive people in. And if you want to set aside some slots for people that need help, then do it deliberately. Understand who you're bringing in. Don't let those people select you illegally, because they're beginning already with strike one. I mean, many of them used to be, that'd be the only thing where they broke the law. Now it's the beginning of a criminal career for many of them. And you can't escape the fact that they're all copying Castro. He's a hero, which is empty out your prisons, empty out your jail cells, empty out your criminally insane facilities. Look, I know the press is horrible. I know you're deprived of information constantly, but you got to know that in Venezuela, crime is all the way down. And I'm telling you, it's not because of the broken windows theory or Comstat. It's because they're here. It's because you, sucker America, elected Joe Biden. They're here. Maduro has the record for lowering crime in South America because he sent them all here. Like the ones who shot the cops the other day. I don't know. What a sad, sad state of affairs for the greatest country on earth. How did we get this stupid, poorly educated, and easily manipulated? How did it happen to us? Maybe because of the intensity and the volume with which they got control of it, huh? I mean, they got control of all the major networks. We'll be back very shortly. Delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends.
Sean is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live. Order your My Pillows. Come on. MyPillows.com. Our friend Mike, he's the best. He is really the best. And get the coffee too. Coffee.com. RudyCoffee.com. Good stuff. The canceling of the meeting with Netanyahu has significance way beyond just the canceling of the meeting. Netanyahu is being scolded because he said publicly the truth. Kind of like when I had to leave WABC because I want to talk about the 2020 election. God forbid you should talk about the 2020 election. I prevent fraud. He said they're holding up weapons. They say they're not. We're not holding up weapons. Well, except for the 2,000-pound bombs because of our concern about their use in a densely populated area like Rafah. I've never seen an administration that lies like this. And, of course, they do because every day they get away with it. This is out of one side of your mouth and then the other, they contradict each other. I mean, it gets back to Biden admitted bribery on tape, and he's sitting in the White House. We could play the tape right now, quid pro quo. And then his son was involved in the case, and the case got fixed. It's provable 60 ways to Sunday. You prove it. You don't have to be a lawyer to prove it. You be a disc jockey. Boom, play the tape. When you get away with that stuff, I guess this is the second meeting that was canceled. Now, here's why it's really important. This meeting was over Iran's new capacity. They believe, and they say, they want to scold Netanyahu. Well, why don't you give him the damn weapons? We're supposed to be on his side. Well, we have new information about computer modeling by Iranian scientists that can be used for hastier creation of nuclear weapons and deployment of them. And we were going to share that information at the Thursday meeting, but because the White House is insulted with putting it up, of course, we're not serious about stopping Iran anyway. Bibi's got to know that. Bibi's got to know that they're not on his side on Iran, they're on Iran's side. He's got to know that. There was an article in the Post or the Journal the other day basically saying that Biden is just following Iran's script completely. You look at the fact that Sinwar and Hamas have now turned down any ceasefire. That comes from Iran. That's not particularly in Hamas's interest. That's not particularly in Palestine's interest. Israel's just going to kill more of them. The longer it goes, the more Israel will kill the Hamas. And eventually they'll get Sinwar. They're going to get Sinwar if they have to go to the ends of the earth to get him. It's not us. It's not. They don't. Their hormones don't get in the way of their protecting their people. Nor does their traitorous instincts or their greed, which happens to us, not to Israelis. It's in the interest of Hamas to have a ceasefire, but they're saying no. That's because it's not in the interest of Iran. Iran is not ready for a major war. That was obvious when they did the symbolic attack on Israel, allowed Israel to hit them back, and then said, okay, everything's okay. And Israel very, very shrewdly showed them how far into Iran they can go and how expertly they can bomb. And they were very, very close to a bullseye, which they could have hit. So now they want to put their bombs even deeper, because they realize they're not really protected. And if they had a matchup with Israel right now, Iran would get wiped out. It'd be wiped out. But maybe not 4 or 5 years from now. So what they want to do is they want to keep Israel engaged. They're stepping up the war in the north with their other proxy, even a more loyal proxy than Hamas, Hezbollah, and a more effective military force and a bigger one. But still not a match yet for Israel. But certainly good enough to inflict some losses on Israel and look for weaknesses that Iran can eventually, in a more careful operation, utilize. But that's going to take them a couple of years. So keep, from Iran's point of view, you keep this war going as long as possible. They're also doing a very, very good job with the Marxist world, and particularly the European pieces of crap, of destroying the reputation of Israel, because Israel protects itself, and they put the civilians in the way of being killed, and then they announce that Israel's killing civilians. We don't even know if the statistics are correct. I mean, they come from a terrorist group. Of course they're not. Well, I think we know they're not correct. We just don't know what the right ones are. I should have put it that way. This meeting is a sign that we really don't take Iran seriously. I don't know what the hell is wrong with Biden and Obama. Well, I think I should stop saying that. The article says, I can find the article, but the article is really foolish. It acts like you can't figure out why Biden and Obama do this. It's been too long now of their helping Iran for us not to figure out it's on purpose, huh? You don't give hundreds of millions of dollars in cash to a terrorist group and not know what you're doing. I mean, Obama is the guy that led Biden now, not the other way around. Obama's still got a brain. Unfortunately, he's got an evil brain. He's got a brain affected by being trained as a communist as a young man. He's got a brain affected by being taught to hate America as a colonial force by his father. First thing he does is get rid of Winston Churchill's statue because he's a colonialist. And Israel's a colonialist? I mean, also, don't get too impressed with Obama's intellect. It isn't the great soaring intellect you think. Never even wrote a piece of paper for the law review. You think he wrote that book? No, Ayers wrote the book. Ayers is his Ayers and the other communists. What the hell was his name? Are the people who trained him. You can't tell me that you don't hate this country if, as president of the United States, you give hundreds of millions of cash to the biggest terrorist in the world, whose desire at that time was to kill as many Americans as possible under Soleimani. And he was killing us. So Obama helped them and financed them to kill Americans. Don't run away from it. Don't run away from it. Just because it's Barry. Let's not run away from it. He's got to be held to answer for why do you give cash to a country that donates half of its money to the terrorist groups that want to kill Americans, and why does your Quds force pick on Americans and kill us? Who's the one person, Ted, that opposed the killing of Soleimani? Well, let me remind you, Soleimani was the charismatic head of the Quds force all during the Iraq-Iran war or later on, and one of his real objectives was to kill Americans. He would divert a lot of his Quds force activity in Iraq to go find Americans and kill us. Of course, he would kill the MEK too. But I mean, through my connections with them, I can I can give you a chapter and verse on how he went after Americans.
I think it's the guy who was wrong about every single foreign policy major decision made in this country for the past 30 years.
Biden opposed our killing Soleimani. Any American that would oppose killing Soleimani should change to another country. When you realize how much American blood Soleimani had on his hands and what a great thing that was. He opposed bin Laden too. I don't know. Maybe Biden is pro-terrorist. Obama is pro-communist. How that leads him to being pro-terrorist, I can see that. The terrorists create chaos, and on the way to world domination, communism will use chaos. So right now, they have a community of interest. It's eventually going to end up one or the other of them if we don't prevail. It'll be the communists. All these people get wiped out by Z. Z will use them as allies until they get in power, and then when they get in power, they're not going to want any allies in power. He'll kill them all, including the Russians. Eventually, that's what happens in all dictatorships. This happened in Iran when they took over. The Ayatollah wasn't in charge. It was a five group, fairly democratic situation. Not even slowly, but rather determined. The Islamic extremists took over in the towns and the villages. And when it was the right time, they brought the Ayatollah back, saying he was going to go to Qom and be the Pope. They didn't tell us he was going to be a Dark Ages Pope leading an army. He came back and they demanded that he become the dictator. Oh, gee, he didn't want to. And then over the next 8 years, they wiped out millions of people. Basically, their allies who were going to share government with them. And then they subjugated the rest. And that's what happens in a terrorist, communist, Nazi takeover. They kill their friends, first. Then they come after me and you. Speaking of anti-American people who hate American nationalism with a passion, George Soros, who does, and has done more to create murder in America than any one single man I can think of, is trying to take over the second biggest radio network in the country, called Accuracy. Do I have that right? No, it's called...
That's right. Odyssey.
No, Odyssey. Audacy. Odyssey. It has 165 million listeners a year. It has conservatives like Sean Hannity, Dana Loesch, Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and Eric Erickson. The Soros fund management needs help, though, from the Biden administration to get this. It needs help from the FCC, controlled by the Biden administration, because you cannot buy a radio station or television station or network, particularly if it's more than 23% foreign owned. This is considerably more than 23% foreign owned. So therefore, they've got to get a waiver from the Federal Communications Commission, which they figure they got about 5 months to work on. And they're pushing it really, really hard. But apparently it looks like for the FCC to do it, they got to skip a lot of steps in their process. So that leaves us with the hope that, one, if they do waive this anti-American, I don't even know how to describe Soros. What a terror to this country. But if they do waive him in, they will have violated enough rules and regulations so you can reverse it. He already took over a Hispanic 18 mostly conservative Hispanic radio stations. Some of their key people quit, like I did when they wouldn't let me talk about the 2020 election because they had principle. And I don't know how successful that's been, but Odyssey is second to iHeart. That has 220 stations. Odyssey has, I guess, less than that. So we're going to have to see. I mean, obviously, it would be the end of Hannity, Loesch, Levin, Beck, and Erickson. I mean, they'd find great spots elsewhere. I wouldn't. These people are legends, so I wouldn't. I mean, I do worry about them, but they're not the main worry here. They go start their own, and it'll be bigger than Soros in a second. Conservatives own talk radio, and they own books. We sell a lot more books than they do. Maybe because we like to listen, talk, think, debate, and read, and they like to react to their hormones, and also take drugs. There was a hearing on COVID that everybody missed because there's so much else going on, but it basically was some of the most distinguished doctors and scientists in the world basically saying what Dr. Maria has said from day one, and I've just repeated, and of course, now read up on it, including Kennedy's book and other things she gives me to read, which is that there's zero evidence for a natural origin of the pandemic. In other words, that whole thing with bats in the market and the Chinese like to eat bats and was all garbage done by Fauci and his friends to cover up their involvement in creating it in the first place. They created the pandemic. They created the new virus. And then they were going to create the vaccine to cure it so they could make billions. And then it escaped, or they let it out, or the Chinese let it out. And the Chinese didn't let it pass. The Chinese went and killed 4 or 5 million people to even the score so that they wouldn't be economically disadvantaged without the rest of the world being killed and economically disadvantaged. And Fauci did everything he could to protect it because he's the culprit. He created the pandemic that, unfortunately, he was telling us how to deal with, which is the reason why he was telling us to kill ourselves. Hydroxychloroquine, nobody bothered to read an article of Fauci's 5 years ago before it when he said hydroxychloroquine was totally safe and a miracle drug that had great properties against all kinds of infections, unknown uses. And then all of a sudden, it not only wasn't helpful, but it was dangerous. After 50 years of use, hydroxychloroquine became dangerous. I used it for malaria. I used it when I got COVID. Why do they do that? Why do they do that to hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, other methods of treatment? I'll tell you why. Because you could not have gotten a vaccine if there was a known treatment regimen. One of the things you have to certify is it's an emergency, there's no treatment, so we better go right away to a vaccine. Now, you usually don't go right away to a vaccine because it's very hard to produce a vaccine, and you can't always. Not every disease has a vaccine. And vaccines are inherently dangerous. They can be more dangerous than the illness. And this vaccine, which is playing around with neurons and is extraordinarily dangerous and never tested. And that's why it takes 4 or 5 years. Another reason is some of the side effects of vaccines don't come out for 2 or 3 years. So now, even if you do test, which they didn't, right? And the tests are safe, you want to do them for 2 or 3 years because you don't know what's going to happen. It turns out that the vaccine, first of all, immediately should have been relabeled not a vaccine because it did not prevent the illness very quickly. Those people taking it were getting COVID as frequently as those who didn't take it. And then they started in with the lie that, which is a lie, that you were better off having taken it than not. The symptoms wouldn't be as great. No, then there came a point where more people that had been vaccinated were dying than people that weren't. And then there came a point where European countries say that we're hiding the side effects. And now there's come a point where people don't want the vaccine at all. They want you to stuff it up your greedy backside. And now it should come to the point where people go to the penitentiary. for having made billions. I mean, one company had a big party that New Year's celebrating how they became billionaires by killing us. Read Robert Kennedy's book if you don't believe me, huh? And then take Fauci and put the little rat where he belongs. In a prison. I mean, Biden will never go to prison because he's he'll go to at best, he'll go to an insane asylum. Fauci's not insane. Fauci's just a greedy little rat and a power-hungry little man.
Well,
he looked like a rat to me the first time I saw him. I think I saw him under the table once at the White House grabbing crumbs.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, look, I wanted to get this in before we sign off, Mayor. There's a very close election in Virginia's 5th Congressional District between incumbent Bob Good and State Senator John McGuire, a person we endorsed on the show here just a month ago. With 97.8% reporting, John McGuire leads Congressman Good by about 321 votes.
Well, he's had the lead all the way.
Yeah.
I remember last night he was ahead by 600.
Yeah.
And while we were on, it went down to 5. And possibly shortly after we went off, it went down to about 3. Yeah. So it's been at 300 now for 24 hours. At 90%, I think it was at 300. So it stayed at 300 to 97%. Yeah. And how many votes total? Let's do a little quick arithmetic.
About 61,000.
61,000.
Yeah.
So there's 1,800 votes left.
Yeah.
And he's ahead by 300.
Yeah.
Starting to get to be a fairly decent lead.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean, I guess the real answer, I think he's going to end up leading when it's over.
I mean, you got to make up, right? He's got to.
But now I'm sure they'll have to do a recount on a thing what's that? Do they give percentages?
Yeah, 49.7% to 50.3 to 49.7.
50.3. So that's a 0.5%. He's ahead by 0.5%.
Yeah, there's a recount coming.
Well, many states have an automatic recount if it's less than 1%. They have a rule that says if it's 1% or less, you must have a recount.
So Bob Good has to win the remaining 1,800 votes by over 321. So we're talking 11 to about an 11. He's going to win 1,100 to 700.
Yeah, given the fact that it's been
even. That's going to be tough. Depends.
He's not winning unless right now. I mean, unless you want to buy them, 27,000 votes for Biden and 300 votes for Trump counts, which they had in. Now, don't hold me to exactly those numbers, but that's about it. That happened a number of times in Pennsylvania, a number of times. I mean, 98% for Biden and 0% for Trump, even though they're virtually even. Yeah, right. That's what happened. You believe that? And as they say, we can sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. And Democrats have sold the Brooklyn Bridge to many poor people. In fact, there's a great article by none other than the Times writer, none other than the Times writer Nicholas Kristof. Let me just read you a little from the New York Times. Nicholas Kristof I probably don't disagree with anyone more than Nicholas Kristof. He was he would have been one of Ronald, if Ronald Reagan were alive, he'd be one of Ronald Reagan's key people to read and do the opposite. Nicholas Kristof is as useless a liberal as there is. But how about to voters? challenge is that some of the bluest parts of the country, confesses Nicholas Kristof. Why put liberals in charge nationally when the places where they have greatest control are plagued by homelessness, crime, and dysfunction? Don't. I've been saying that for years, Nicholas. That's why I was able to change New York, because I'm not a crooked Democrat liberal. The bosses of the party don't control me. And a stupid, silly, Marxist-inspired ideology I find to be evil, not just wrong. We are more likely to believe, meaning liberals, housing is a human right than conservative, but less likely to actually get people housed, which also makes the point that Democrats and liberals can't govern. They are they're too unrealistic. To govern, like to run a business, you have to be practical. They're silly, stupid ideologues when they aren't mean, vicious Marxists. Liberals accept a yawning gulf between our values and our outcomes and settle for being performative. Example, as a gesture to support trans kids, Oregon took money from the tight education budget in kindergarten. Tampons in kindergarten? Sounds like the New York City school system, doesn't it? Marxist teachers union. Well, Nicholas, I don't know how this happened, but we agree on two things. Liberals are incapable of governing because they're too impractical, and they're phonies. What did we call limousine liberals? Yeah, they proved that when DeSantis sent the illegal aliens to the sanctuary city of Martha's Vineyard, the home of Prince Obama. They got thrown out of there so fast they didn't even get a chance to urinate. God forbid they did. They might spoil the place. Please, now that Trump has moved us around to a populist party, the last vestige of what held me back from being a Republican, that they don't take care of the poor, is gone. In fact, that's why I left, among other things, and it was how they were cheating, how the Democrats, through the Great Society, was stealing money. This was back in the 70s, stealing money from the poor, because I really thought they had a concern for the poor. No, they don't. You look at all these congressmen whose districts, they were just talking about, I've forgotten which one, but the district hasn't changed in years, and he's been there for years. And just a story all over. I mean, some of them, they're just incompetent. Some of them become millionaires. But they don't care. It's all a big act. It's what do they call value signaling? Virtue. Virtue signaling. And then another article here from the Free Press, Niall Ferguson, is are we Soviets? Have we become Soviets? It says we have already a nomenclatura, meaning there are certain things that you have to say and how you have to say them. Individual freedom gets contracted every year. We have bogus ideologies on gender, race. Like we can't define a woman. We've done a very good job of getting rid of God. Population that regards patriotism, religion, having children, and community involvement as really a sign that you're some kind of Nazi. You're some kind of a Nazi that wants to, I don't know what. Why would anybody who wants to listen to a Latin mass or want to have a lot of children or get goosebumps when they hear the national anthem or see the American flag? What Why wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't they be like people that would tend to be much more moral? Isn't it better to have a population of moral people than immoral people? With no rules, you can do anything you want. You could say, oh, today I have a penis, but I can go in the ladies' room because I want to look at the little girls in the ladies' room. But that's okay. That's all right. You just get to define that. Are we crazy? Yep. Yep. We even have Soviet justice. Witness Trump's New York trial. How about mine? How about my bar association proceeding? Justice? Wait until you see it. Well, that's what this election's about. And that's why when Trump and others say it's the most important election in history, I do know that unfortunately we've all said that too much, and therefore it has a little bit of crying wolf, the old crying wolf legend, but it's true. We're past, actually, we're past a line. In many respects, we've become a dictatorship, and we got to take it back. It's no longer stopping it. It's taking it back. It's recreating a fair justice system in which conservatives like you and me aren't railroaded and framed every time they get us in court. They just throw away the rules. They can do anything to us. Anything. Or they don't even listen to our side of it. They just listen to the other side. So it's got to change. And this is our chance. And I was going to go over the polls with you because they trouble me a little. I don't like a little bit of what I see. Yeah, a teeny bit. The recent polls have Biden.
What do you see that troubles you? Let's talk about it.
Well, I mean, what troubles me is the most recent poll. Biden has a 2-point lead nationally. Now, that doesn't change too much state, but his lead is narrowed in every one of them by a point or two. So right now, if you were going to be fair and honest, you'd say the momentum is with Biden right now. The polls have swung back toward Biden. Not so much that it's over by any means, but it's not a nice way to go into the debate. We were better off about 2 weeks ago. And some of their democracy thing is working. He's going to take away democracy is working. And some of their attacks on his integrity are working because people think that Biden has more integrity, which is absolutely insane. It's insane. There are certain things that are very strong. Immigration, law and order. Not strong enough. The polls are not strong enough in the difference between the way they would handle foreign affairs. I mean, after all, one created a world at peace and the other has created a world at war. They should be 20 points apart. And they're not. They're almost even. So we can never, ever, ever discount the power. They have 80% of the communications. If we have 20%, it's a lot. So we have to outperform them 4 or 5 to 1. I mean, I still can't get people to cover the fact that the issue of whether Joe Biden got money is closed. He did. His son says he did. The evidence in the hard drive shows that he did. And even the conservative media will say, well, there's not proof that he got. And none of them will cover the fact that Hunter is a pervert and a danger to the children and that Joe ignored it. What kind of evil son of a what we have in the White House that allows his grandchildren to be sacrificed to his ambition? He's sure doing that with Navy, isn't he? Ruining that little girl. Never even met her. American people should hate him for that. They don't tell people that. Trump did that, it'd be all over the place. That's what we're facing. And there's a reason those polls have to be concerning, because they're going to continue to use their dominant position and pound it home. And I can see in those polls some of it working. So we don't have much of a margin here to work with. We got to organize, and we got to get the message out, and we got to do it person to person. And this is not a self-serving message at this point. This is for the good. We got to build up our audience. We got to reach more people. You got to help me reach more people. For me, for all the people I mentioned before who would get thrown off if Soros bought the radio station, and you know who they are, all my friends. We're going to probably lose Steve Bannon's voice, and on purpose. You'd think they're not putting him in for the last 4 months of the election? They're not doing it because they want to shut him up? He's one of the most powerful voices for Trump. He's got a vast audience. And he has an ability to activate. That's a big loss. I don't know if you can do that from prison. That's on purpose. They tried to do the same thing to me. They just couldn't get the case in Georgia organized on time. It turned out she was a big hoe. Not only that, she's a big thief. Now, how about that one? How many times have I played for you her on tape saying she took money from her campaign account? And nobody, why? Why? Because she's black? I don't know. Why? She goes down there, and I mean, she goes to the churches down there and claims that it's only being done to her because she's black. No, I'm sorry. If you hire as a special counsel the guy you're having sex with, and he's married, and you're paying him $1 million when he exam, question, I'll tell you, man, I would have failed him in any course in law school. I was a jackass. You paid him $1 million, and you flew all around the world with it, and you claimed you gave him cash. Well, you have no records of it, and then you slipped up, but you got away with it. Because all this stuff about how you're victims, it's just the opposite. You're the preferred. You're the one in the golden circle. You can get to say things. I took the money from my campaign account and used it for personal reasons. Oh, my God, if a Republican said that, next thing that happened is the attorney general would show up with his stormtroopers, frighten the hell out of your kids, and arrest you. You get arrested for a lot less than that. You get arrested for protesting abortion. You go to jail for 20 years for that. And they arrest you with stormtroopers for that, too. They got to have machine guns for little old ladies who are against killing babies. And that's their best issue. Isn't that amazing? When a political party's best issue is killing babies. It used to be their best issue was slavery, the Democratic Party. So maybe it's kind of similar. And I want to focus on that before you dismiss what I just said. They're in favor of killing 7, 8, 9-month-old in the womb. That's not a baby. That hasn't gotten to the point where we've legalized murder. Those are living human beings. They come out of the womb, they're going to live. They already have a brain, they have everything. And goodness, they have a soul. I mean, even those people who make a distinction between where life begins or when the soul enters the body have no dispute about the seventh, the sixth, even the 6th month, but certainly the 7th, 8th, and 9th month. And that's the part that has to be emphasized. The extremists here are the murdering Democrats. Joe Biden, a Catholic, wants to get elected on the platform that you can murder 7, 8, and 9-month babies. So all of that has to be refocused because we do not have a proper voice in this country for the numbers that we are. And that hurts us tremendously. And I think the poll shows that. And we're going to have to step up our game with a couple of people on the disabled list. So please help me. help me find a bigger audience, help my friends find a bigger audience. The sponsors that we have are all involved in the movement. You buy my pillows, and you are helping Michael get this message out through Frank TV, which will be on starting on Monday. The same thing with the coffee company, the same thing with, of course, Tunnel to Towers, T2T.org. That's why we have those sponsors. It's a dual purpose. So we can expand, they can expand, and we can do something about this censorship that we have. Well, as I always say each night when we sign off, please think about the people of Israel. They're being double-crossed so much by our country that we don't have control of. It's not us, people of Israel. It's the criminal in the White House who favors Iran, and the guy who pulls the strings for him, Prince Obama. Pray for the people of the United States to give them wisdom and attention span, and the ability to read again and make up their minds for themselves and to see through this phoniness. I mean, we always were distinguished by our common sense. And almost everything Biden does defies common sense. It all defies decency. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3 on X and all these stations, and then 8 o'clock tomorrow night here, and God bless America.
Bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply